You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market, from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the option block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Asset Management, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Vanazzi from OptionPit.com, and Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the option block.
All right, everybody. That rockin' tune means it's time yet again for the option block. Everyone's favorite, at least I hope it's your favorite, bi-weekly source for all things options related. Some analysis, some unusual activity, some much trading, a whole heap of strategery, a bunch of your questions, and a peer into the future stirred together. You've got the delicious and sometimes dangerous potion that is the option block. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting Options Insider Radio Network. If you hear a little banging and construction in the background, listeners, I apologize. They're doing some work in the offices immediately adjacent to the studios here, so we'll try to do our best to make sure it doesn't bleed in. But sometimes you can't go. There it goes again. Sometimes you can't control these things, but we'll do our best to make sure it sounds good for you. And of course, you can always get all the fun episodes of this show and every other program we do, theoptionsinsider.com, or via your provider of choice. So if you just subscribe to the Option Block, guess what? We got 14 other shows for you. Easiest place to get all of them. You can subscribe individually if you're a masochist. The easiest place to go get them all in one place, of course, is the network feed. Just grab that wherever you're going, get your podcasts, and it'll deliver all that goodness into your ear holes 24/7, 365. Of course, you can always grab our mobile app, and you can download a stream till your heart's content and everyone is happy and smiling. And however you listen, including those of you who can join us live every Monday and Thursday, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, via Mixlr, MIXLR. We love you guys out there as well. However you listen, make sure you hit us up. Questions, comments, insights, pearls of wisdom, all that good stuff. We love it all. Slams against the Rock Lobster. Yes, we take it all here on the old program. Speaking of the Rock Lobster, let's welcome on my cohorts, my partners in crime, starting off with the aforementioned Rock Lobster. I'll bring him on before he can take umbrage. Mr. Rock Lobster, welcome back to the program. How goes the umbrage, sir?
We're finally getting some rain in Maine, so I am not as umbrage laden as normal.
Now, does the rain in Maine stay mainly on the plain as well, even though there aren't really many plains to speak of in Maine, but does it happen there?
We have some rain. There is a desert in Maine, actually. Just sort of, west of Freeport, and I just sneezed.
That was lovely.
I try to mute, but I can only mute when I don't want to.
Exactly. You can mute when you have things to say. When you're about to cough all over your microphone or sneeze, that's when the mute button is impossible to find. All right, let's move away from him while he takes care of his business over there. Let's move instead, listeners, to a little hamlet called St. Charles, where no one ever sneezes or gets sick because it's a paradise on earth, and everyone just eats Skippy Zeros and lemonade all day. Where we're joined by Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Wealth Advisors. 2 shows back-to-back with some RCM folks. I had some RCM folks on the Twifo show on Friday, too, so I'm all loaded up to the gills with RCM folks. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the program, sir.
Always happy to be here. And Andrew, we got plenty of rain for you in St. Charles. We'll send some your way. I haven't got to put the boat in over a week because the river is closed right now. And I'm actually really happy that I have a house that's up on a hill.
Wow. So you got that much rain. Woo.
Oh, yeah, we're flooded. Record levels on the Fox.
So I guess you guys forgot to activate the old weather shield out there in paradise on Earth known as St. Charles, Illinois. Well, you guys figure out your futuristic weather tech. We'll keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block. Like the name implies, this is indeed the portion of the program where we break down what was moving, shaking, rocking, rolling in today's activity. And most of the major indices ending the day pretty much unched or right around that area. S&P almost literally unched, not even a handle down. And then the Dow off about a 0.25% or so, maybe a little bit less than that. The NASDAQ, the one little bit of a mover and shaker, up almost 0.5%, about 0.4%. And all this mixed bag on the screen meant the fixed cash end of the day pretty much unched. But what a weird day it was in terms of lows. I mean, we're talking about, just dripping and dropping. And then all of a sudden, just VIX cash, just the bottom just falls out from under. We were talking, I believe it was a week and a half ago, where we had that low of a 9.5, and everyone was writing about how it's a 24-year low. And today we got down to 926 listeners out there in the VIX cash. For some reason, I think my VIX quotes are a little screwy because it's telling me it closed unched, but in reality, it opened at 994 and then closed right around much lower than that. So it closed off quite a bit, it seems like, today. But it flirted ever so close to the 10 handle, 997, but did not make it. So an interesting day. Some may call it a shellacking, a drubbing, all sorts of crazy town. So let's start in Crazy Town, a.k.a. Maine. Mr. Rock Lobster, what did you and the crazies in the pit chat make of this interesting activity out here in VIXland?
VIXland activity mostly was our closing some positions. We had some short vol, and we started closing some of those, closing some into the close, as a matter of fact, because this is one of the points in the cycle, I think, where they sell the future a little early, and then it takes a while for more of the premium to come out. Of course, when VIX trades 920 something, 926 or 927, how much future premium can you have? Can you have $3 or $4 worth of future premium with only a couple of weeks to go? So that July future premium has been, I would say, stubbornly around $2. Not bad or good, but it's keeping that range, and then it's drifting lower into the end of the week. So that's about normal, even with VIX at all-time lows. It looks, just watching how vol is moving, that it would not surprise me to see more of the same of all this. So actually, the real winner that all my clients have been loving is just being long UVXY puts. They did the twice yearly gift of reverse splitting. So UVXY conveniently went from $9 to $33 or $34, and then it's already trading $28.70. So it splits right into the teeth of contango, it seems like, every time, and that has been a decent trade for people in the pit.
I forgot who it was. It might have been your buddies over there at Typhon. I think they tweeted out something along the lines of, if you had bought 10,000 worth of the original print or something along that back in VXX when it first came out, just how much that would be just destroyed by now. I'll have to see if I can dig up that exact tweet. They had some exact metrics.
It's a good one.
It was impressive.
It's like I think it was $12.7 million turned to $30.
I think that's the one. That's the one. It was like 40 something. Yeah, something absurd annihilation of capital. It's one of the more impressive things I've seen in quite some time. I'll see if I can dig up the exact numbers. But yeah, I'm glad you saw that one, because that was a fun one that definitely caught my eye. Speaking of catching our eye, Mr. Uncle Mike, in addition to sending a few worried glances over at the river, seemed to be going to wash away. While you weren't doing that, what was catching your eye in today's activity, sir?
Well, we're high enough up to where if the house itself actually washes away, quite frankly, I'm building an ark. That's the least of our worries. But with all that being said, a couple things. We have a little bit of a rally going in Apple. Apple up $1.82 on the day, past the 152 mark. We might make a run at that all-time high of 156.65 before earnings coming out in another week or so. So that's definitely something that's exciting to watch at this point. Wish I could say that I had a very highly concentrated position on Apple right now based on the current movement, but we just have a little bit of a position in the triple income as well as a strategic night within Apple. So we have that going on. I believe the NASDAQ actually made an intraday all-time high. Can't confirm that right now, but I believe I saw that during the day. So we did have some movement in the NASDAQ. Also, some other things with which we have going on. XLF continues to flirt with the 25 mark. Just cannot seem to get over that in the financial realm. I do believe that after these earnings, if we do have some good earnings, we could be on the precipice of a breakout in the financial world. So that's something that I'm watching very closely. In terms of some things that are catching my eye at this point, we really did not have, it was really not a very exciting day in the macro world. The fact that I think we have 6 pennies of movement in SPY really shows that we did not have a ton of movement today, and I really believe that there's a lot of traders and investors just waiting to see what happens in this. We have a really heavy earnings week this week, so I think that they're waiting to see that, and I have a feeling, a little birdie told me, Mark, I got some birdies working for me now. They're telling me that you might have something to say about some alphabet soup or something like that of what's going on right now.
Just maybe, sir. They are indeed popping off after the bell. The actor formerly known as Google, now known as Alphabet, ticker symbol, of course, Google with the L. And they wound up the day, getting a little bit of a rally on towards the end of the day. They round up the day almost $5 or higher than when we were pricing them up for the straddle time. It was about $9.98 and change was where they closed on the day. And before we even get into the after hours number, because they are popping off here in the after hours, you guys look away from your screens for a second. Don't look at Twitter, of course, and don't even look at the after hours. I don't want it to color your perceptions. We asked our fine folks out there a few hours before the number here. Said Google was priced, it was around $9.93 at the time. The straddle was right around 4%. So we asked you straight up, are you a buyer or a seller there? We asked you, hey, buy it 4%, that's super cheap. Sell it 4%, way too expensive. Or you kind of Goldilocks, 4% is just right. Or you're like, I'm holding out for Amazon, I'm waiting for the big guns later this week. Let's start with you, Mr. Rock Lobster. What is your vote? Maybe your vote may be colored by after hours, but c'est la vie. And then what do you think is winning our poll, more importantly?
I thought 4% actually is just about right. So I thought that was kind of fairish. Although I'm looking at the after hours.
Spoiler, our listeners never picked just right. Spoiler, that's not going to win. So I'm just giving you that one now.
But I thought that sounded relatively fairish, given that, Google could easily move like $40 or something like that. It's not. But something that's just right is not a trade for me, because that means there's no edge. So I don't care. But I think that's what everybody would say.
You think everyone's picking just right, even though I just said they did not pick it? Okay, there you go. Take your contextual clues as you will, sir. I was giving you a broad hint. You just went right past it. Sailing on into oblivion. I cannot help you, sir. All right, moving on to Uncle Mike. Hint, don't pick 4% is right, because that's not what they picked. But what are your thoughts, sir, on what is your thought if you have one? Again, don't let the after hours here color you in any way. And then what do you think our listeners are choosing out there?
If I had a gun to my head and had to trade, I would, in reality, stay away from it because I'm not an earnings guy, as our audience and you guys very well know. But I would have guessed that I probably would have been a seller of this. But I got to be honest with you, I have tainted eyes in terms of watching the screen with what's going on with it. Because although I'm not an earnings guy, I am fascinated by watching such movements. I am a trading junkie. But I do think that 4%, I probably would have guessed that as a little bit much. But once again, I'm being a Monday morning quarterback, so full disclosure on that. And I think the audience would have picked the same as well.
Well, the premium buyers are winning the day out there. I think they've been colored by maybe some Netflixes earlier in the cycle. I think we got a lot of premium buyers, more than maybe expected, lurking in our audience out there. The last few polls we've done, we've seen premium buyers win the day. Not to say there's a right or wrong to it. You don't have to be dark side or light side. You can go however way you want. But it's just interesting that the premium buyers are winning the day these days. 40% so far saying buy it. 4% is cheap. 29% close second saying sell it. It's expensive. 11% coming on the walking the line, the boring vanilla, Mr. Rock Lobster saying it's just right. And a nice 20% saying they're holding out for the big A, the big Amazon. We got a few hours left for that one. So vote if you haven't done so already. And as in terms of what's popping off out there, Uncle Mike has been colored a little bit by it because it is moving, but not quite up to steam. Like I said, they're pricing in about 4% right now, just shy of 2.5% off, nearly $25 in the after hours. So a good move, a hefty move, a hearty move, some might say, but not quite up to the magnitude that the folks were pricing in over there. Mr. Rock Lobster, anybody in your crazies, your hardcores, are they slinging any GOOGLs these days?
Normally we do have some type of earnings plays, but I do not think I do not believe anybody slung any Google. There was some interest in some cheapy upside flies, but I do not believe there was big swinging of the Google today. I wish I had something better to report on you, because there is some kind of strangle swapping action that we do, or we look at when it behooves us to do so. But it did not happen in Google. So
yeah, I tossed you for something fun, like, a nice iron condor ratio swap or something like that, and you let me down, sir. Not even rolling some puts or anything like that. Nothing, just boring stuff all along. But it is an exciting week, as Uncle Mike alluded to. Usually we save this stuff for around the block. We'll get to some now, because there are so many big names popping off this week, including when we're not talking to you in between showtimes. How dare they? How dare they announce earnings when we're not doing a show? Tomorrow we got good old Chipotle, formerly the Stealth Apple. The salmonella and I think some mice videos and a few other things have conspired to erode some of that premium. They're popping off tomorrow after the bell. They closed today right about $3.40 or so, 2 cents less to be precise. They're pricing at about $23, so about 6.5%, somewhere in that range. A pretty hearty straddle out there as well, as people have been kind of lining up on both sides. I mean, Tesla's very polarizing, probably the most polarizing out there these days, but Chipotle is not far behind in terms of just people coming at these guys left and right, saying, every little time anyone gets anything, gets a sniffle at one of their restaurants, it's almost front page news, it seems like. So this one has been an interesting one to watch, and they're pricing in some pretty hefty juice, 6%, 6.5%, almost, dare I say, eBay levels of premium, which was pricing in an impressive 7% going into their earnings, and we all know how that one played out. Didn't work out so well if you bought that hefty 7% straddle. Facebook also popping off later this week. Actually, I believe they are. Yes, they are on Wednesday after the bell. They closed today 166 even. They had a good day, rallying about 1%, and they were pricing in. They are pricing in about 750, so about 4.5%. Again, fairly rich premiums coming in, which is, I think, kind of surprising for some people, given how the last few quarters we've seen have kind of been a bit of a shrug from a earnings perspective. So very few names were really blowing the doors off, outside of a couple of exceptions last few quarters. So you think when you see those, you usually see these premiums start to contract a little bit, and yet they're still fairly hefty, when even eBay can command a hefty 7%. And not to be outdone, we'll be live for this one, so we'll talk about it again later this week, but you got to put it in there. It's kind of just dominating the headlines these days. Who knows who they will acquire next? It is the dark shadow of Amazon, the specter of Mordor lurking there in the retail sector, at least. They're coming off on Thursday, so we'll have a chance to chat about these ones live on Thursday as well. So far, they're right around 1040 or so right now, 1039 right now. And they're pricing in right now. Again, we got some time left to go, so these numbers could evolve, but pricing in about $45, so a little over 4%, about 4.3% or so out there for juice. So interesting range. I don't know, Mr. Rocklop. I know, Mr. Uncle Mike, you don't really play a lot of single-name earnings plays. I know, Mr. Rocklop, so your hardcores, your pit chatters, that's what they live for over there, as well as you occasionally, every now and then as well, when you can be torn away from your Zyngas and your other esoteric names you like to sling back there. Which one of these names you think are your hardcores really chomping at the bit to get at here? It's Chipotle, maybe a Facebook, maybe an Amazon, or maybe some other weird one coming off this week that we haven't talked about.
Actually, Chipotle and Amazon are both looking to fade a little bit of upside in Chipotle, possibly, or actually Tesla, which is just another name possible. Also looking for, kind of a size move in Amazon. It's $1,000 now. There's got to be some point where Amazon has to put up a huge number to justify the price. Although, they just, it kind of feels like they're almost like a bully now. Amazon's a behemoth. And this little company, Blue Apron, comes along, and it's sort of like...
It does have a bit of that narrative, you're right. They're like the Empire coming in.
with an axe just taking it to a priest's head, like the little guy, like, you're dead,
Yeah, I think the bloom has definitely come off the rose from a public perception thing. I think someone tweeted out something, I think we saw it on some of our things, a picture of Jeff Bezos when he first founded Amazon, and he was, obviously younger, 20-odd years younger, but also, very happy and smiley and nerdy and cherubic, and they fast forward to him now, obviously older, but he's looked a lot angrier and just different kind of guy, completely than he was back in those early days, which just sell some books. And so, yeah, a lot has changed in those days, and their perception probably has a little bit as well. So Amazon, that's the big one, and you said Facebook as well? Or Chipotle?
We haven't looked at Facebook yet, but Amazon, Tesla, again, another one with... I know the potential is enormous for Tesla. They're going to start making batteries for the world. California is going to continue to have subsidies for cars, even though the federal government is not, blah, 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 blah. I just think those are two where the values are so huge that I don't know when it will be. That at some point they're going to have to put up some numbers. I don't see how Tesla does it. Our closet thing in Tesla as well is because they made that bet or something with that Australian government for providing battery packs. After this earnings, I think that'll be the next interesting event. So I don't see how they can keep going up, although I lived through 1997 through 2001. So stocks can go up much farther than you think they can. So they're not going to surprise me. But I would guess we're going to see some moves out of them at this point.
There you go. I can go a whole 5 minutes without invoking the T name, but you just said them. That means we have to talk about them. We'll do them next, as well as a bunch of others coming up next in the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
Everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show we break down weird, wild, wonderful, head-scratching, chin-scratching, eyeball-popping paper that was lighting it up today. You mentioned the T word on Mr. Rocklap, so that is, of course, Tesla. People keep asking us, are these puts popping off here still? These catastrophe puts, call them what you will, bankruptcy, dissolution, whatever kind of puts you want. The Jan 2019 50 puts, and the answer is yes. They continue to trade 212 more hitting the tape today, a total of 28,573, up many thousands since we first noticed these about a month and change ago, probably. So this is not something that's been a static thing. When we first saw this, I thought it was an aberrant print. I thought it was wrong. I made them run the scan again, and then I did it myself, and sure enough, it was right. And so it's kind of a weird one. In fact, I ran into someone this weekend who's a diehard Tesla devotee and also loves to selling some Tesla puts, and he's constantly telling me about how he's doing selling, I think, about 5% out of the money Tesla puts. And so I brought this to his attention this past weekend, and he was stunned to hear the fact he seemed intrigued at the prices they were going for. He may want to sell some of these out himself. And then I explained to them, we got to sit on those now for about a year and a half. So then he was a little less inclined to harvest that. I think $1.60, though $1.10, $1.10 to $1.30 range that they're in right now. It seemed too juicy, too good to be true at first for him. But then he backed off. So I don't know, Mr. Rocklop, so you were thinking about diving into these bad boys, were you not?
there are lots of ways to go broke, and one is buying puts in a stock that keeps going up. I keep thinking too is Tesla. I guess they must have some debt, but I just always thought that he was able to issue equity. My thought on these was just somebody that had been selling credit default swaps on their debt, and they just need something. But I still find this as an odd one. This is one of those where this is the cheap put that somebody can buy, and maybe Tesla's a big house of cards, but I don't know. It's just to me, it's when the government is behind a business like this, it's just hard to say it ain't going to work. So I still think that it's a goofy shot, but somebody's taking it.
Yeah, someone's taking it and doing it for a fair amount of size and doing it regularly for day after day, week after week. 50, 80, 100, couple hundred here or there every single day. So who knows? Maybe we've shined some light on these and driven. So I know a few people who have bought these who have written to us now saying we have bought these. So maybe it's partly self-fulfilling prophecy. We have created some interest in this, but still, it is eye-catching nonetheless. Let's move on to the real stuff that caught our eye today. Let's get out there into Siri. No, not unfortunately the much maligned digital assistant on your iOS device. Nope, this is Sirius XM Holdings, ticker symbol SIRI, SIRI, closing today a whopping $5.38 off about a dime or so, a little over about 1.5% on the day. So not a bang-up day for good old Sirius XM. Worth pointing out they have earnings before the open on Thursday, so things perhaps not lining up well for them. The underlying selling off and the puts lighting it up today. It's a name that does about 11,000 contracts a day, so pretty hefty for an odd block candidate, pretty hefty for a $5 stock too. And then today doing about 48,000, so a little over 4x their ADV, about 20-1 puts over calls. Pretty much that's where the lion's share. And of that 46,000 puts or so, 30,000 of them went up in a pretty sizable chunk over there. Actually, a total of 40,000 on the day. When we first started noticing these, they were the SEP 5.5 puts listeners going up for 28 cents, pretty much lifting the offer. It was a tight market, so the offer can be a little bit misleading there. But lifting the offer on 30,000 of these bad boys over there on the Philly. Marked as buy right, of course. That means there's a stock component in there somewhere. The open interest is only 1,500, so this is clearly opening. As the day went on, another 10,000 or so clearly have piled in. So pretty much all the activity for today, almost 41,000 of the 48,000 total contracts going up on this one strike here. SEP 5.5s, pretty interesting for a couple of reasons. They are pretty meaty at this point. They're a little bit in the money as well. That part of that, I'm sure, is due to the dearth of strikes and such a cheap name like this. You got pretty much 5, 5.5, and 6. You don't have a lot of other room to really play around with in a cheap name like this. So looks like someone coming in and establishing pretty aggressively here on the 5.5 line, doing it for about 28 cents. I don't have the price on the latter kind, but I'm guessing that 10,000 somewhere in that frame as well. Looking back at the year that was, we can see if we can get an inkling of why our friends here are perhaps a wee bit concerned about some downside, but also doing it with some stock. So Tide, that's a little bit of a different beast. And here we have this name about a year, actually not even less than a year, about September of last year, was trading all the way into November, was trading in the low 4 handle, 410, 416 in that range. So this name has printed far lower, even got down to 475 back in May, so not that long ago, about 2 months ago, before rally ho mode, getting back up to about 550 and kind of vacillating around these levels ever since. Mr. Rock Lobster, I look to you for all of my underlying stock prints. I do believe my little birdie, who ate Uncle Mike's birdie, is very tasty, by the way, is telling me somewhere around 1.5 million shares. Is that what your little lobsters are telling you over there as well?
The umbrage flows. It looks like that was the print. 1.5 million shares for $5.50. It's 146. So that looks the time. So it looks like somebody wants to get some. They want to spend about 10% of the value of SIRI to own the straddle. And does isn't this the Howard Stern? Doesn't he own a bunch of this stock, or was it XM that he got?
Does.
And then
he
SIRI
does.
Bought it?
Hopefully he bought puts a long time before now, but yes, he does. I think he still has some. I'm assuming he's one of the largest stakeholders at this point, right?
The thing is, vol is low when it's a 30 volatility stock and it's $5. So I know that those numbers might sound goofy.
Here's the thing, though. If you're Howard Stern, would you want to pick up more Sirius stock with this trade? Would you be doing these tied? Probably not, right? That'd be the last thing. Oh, God. Do these tied? No.
It feels like he could just write calls against this forever and just make,
And he'd still be in the toilet. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's just one of these businesses that somehow it never has grown. I mean, it's still kicking, it's still moving, I guess, the stock, but I get, it was what, a $3.50 stock a year and a half ago, and now it's $5.30. So I mean, it's moving. There's something kind of there. It makes a little bit of money. It just never grows. It's sort of, it feels sort of like a utility at this point. Okay, well, everybody gets their Sirius satellite holdings. It makes a couple of bucks, and it just it's never taken off. So it looks like an odd put in stock trade to me, because if it never really moves, why would you want to own any gamma in it? But maybe that's what somebody wants to do. So
yeah, the tied leg kind of threw me off a little bit too. I mean, I first looked at it, I thought, okay, this is probably just someone with some size, and I saw the buy right print, and I said, oh well, that throws out my Howard Stern hypothesis as well.
Right. So it's a little. We have seen weirder trades that have made no sense at all, no statistical sense at all, but have made somehow somebody has made tons of dough on it.
Are you saying this is a Men's Warehouse? Is that what you're telling me? This is code for this is the Men's Warehouse trade. Beware this one. This is going to print some money. Sirius is going to the moon or to the toilet sometime soon.
It has all the smell of Men's Warehouse. Not that the stores smell, but it's a trade that it is like it's taken a year for the thing to move 50 cents. So somebody thinks it's going to move 50 cents in a cycle and a half. It could happen for sure, but it just it's a surpriser.
You heard it here first, listeners. The Rock Lobster says this SIRI trade looks and smells like a Men's Warehouse trade. If you listen to the show for a while, you know exactly what we're talking about. If not, dig back a little bit in the archives. Search for the ticker for Men's Warehouse, and you too can find exactly what the heck was. Another trade we roundly mocked. Ended up doing pretty well. We had a stock component that we roundly mocked, and that ended up winning the day for them. So sometimes the random stock can work in your favor. Not always, but sometimes. Let's move on to good old SIGMs, everyone's favorite. You wake up in the morning, you have your coffee, take a shower, you check a quote on SIGMs. That's what everyone does. Of course, this is Scientific Games Corp, ticker symbol SGMS. Closing today, $34.15. Up, get ready for this, up $7.30, or about 27%. So not a bad day. They clearly had earnings popping off before the bell today. So everyone and their mother loving themselves some SIGMs today. It's the name that does nearly 3,000 contracts a day, not even that much. Doing 44,000 today. Surprise, surprise. Calls outnumbering them puts quite a bit, about 7.5 to 1 out here. And a lot of papers, so you can kind of throw a dart, hit a strike, and pick some weird ones. We found one that was kind of interesting, not just the call palooza, but a little bit of maybe of a VIX heralding, a little bit of a VIX throwback. Maybe our friend here listens to Vol Views and decided, I like that, I want to put that on for SIGMs, because that's kind of what he did. If you listen to Vol Views this past week, and for a while back, we talked a lot about ratio 1x2s out there where you sell 1x2. It kind of was the trade du jour for all of 2016. It kind of went away for a lot of 2017 as everyone kind of just decided to just crush vol without even buying the upper legs, and no one thought it was rebounding. Now you see a few of those coming back in. A similar trade going up today here in good old SIGMs, but the name's already rallying, so it's kind of interesting. He put on a little bit longer term, the Jan 2235. There we go. So all kind of interesting. Selling some pretty aggressive in the monies. This has the look, actually, when you start looking at the OI. Well, I'll get to that in a bit. We sold about 6,000 of these Jan 22s for $11.25. OI pretty sizable on that strike, 9,500 and change. So it looks like it could be a bit of a roll. And as we said many times here on this show, when they roll, they tend to do, and they're sitting on some house money, as our friend clearly is when he's got the 22 strike in his pocket. Stock closing today at 34 and change. He's got a nice 12 bucks and change sitting in his pocket. So he's going to turn around and say, I'm not done yet. The party's not over. I'm coming back, and I'm coming back hard on the 35 strike to the tune of 11,500 of these bad boys, picking those up for 340, doing the whole spread. Looks like for about 445, right around 450. Credit to him. So interesting stuff for a couple of reasons. First off, our friend's not closing out the party. He's decided, no, I'm coming back, and I'm coming back in style. It's like someone who makes a grand exit and then turns around 5 minutes later, kicks in the door, says, I'm back. So that's exactly what he did. Open interest, pretty negligible, 73 contracts on the 35 strike. So our friend here, feeling the love, sitting on some cash, probably got a nice smile on his face and saying, you know what? I think this party's going to keep on rolling, or at the very least, he's got some money to burn now where he can afford to take another swing at the bat, and it's not exactly costing him a ton. He did give away a good chunk of his juicy credit there, so he is not exactly doing it for nothing. 2x on the 340 option. That'll add up over time. Looking at this name, this thing has kind of been in the toilet for most of this year. Back in September, towards the end of last year, it was in the single digits. And now it's trading $34. So if you were in this bad boy in fall of last year when it was shy of $10, I take my hat off to you. You're sitting on a nice 3X, perhaps like our friend here, who loved these Sigum's Jan 22s. Mr. Rock Lobster, take us home. We love these 1x2s, particularly when they're sitting on some nice house money. He decided to put some money back to work, though. He didn't go cheapy. He didn't go for like the 50s or something. He went back for the at-the-money 35s. Kind of interesting.
I don't understand how the stock's of $7. Are they getting bought out by IGT or something? I don't know.
I haven't looked at the underlying. We just look at the options. So that's all we care about. The underlying, I know. What the heck is that? I
know. It does look like a roll-up, house money roll-up. Thank you very much. And I have to say, though, that's a fair bet to spend $4.50 on the Jan 2018 35s. Did they reinvent something online? Are they going online casino? Because I know they do lottery table gaming. I think it used to be called Shuffle Master back in the way old days when I used to trade it as a equity. And it was kind of a good little trader. But maybe they reinvented the wheel this year. I don't know. But this is a house money roll up. I would say on a very strong delta. Yes, that's what it is. And they're not afraid to spend some bucks on premium either, by the way.
No, those are $3.40, so those were not cheapies. And
real money.
Yeah, he was sitting on a nice $12 credit roughly, and he gave a good chunk of that away. So it wasn't like he still got some cash in his pocket. So if it all goes to hell, he won't be super sad. He'll be sad probably, but not super sad. But still, interesting stuff. Let us know what you think about these kind of house money rolls. When would you consider getting back in? This thing already had a good run. Our friend here is saying, you know what? The party's not over. I'm back for more, and I'm doing it for some size. Speaking of what you guys think, it's time to find out exactly that, because it's time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the mail block. This is indeed the portion of the show where you guys take the reins, you guys drive the boat. I take a nice back seat and relax, and I listen to all your crazy questions. No, I'm kidding, of course. We love all of your insights, pearls of wisdom. Quick check-in on our friend here, the Googs. And they're still holding out shy of that straddle, so about flirting with 3%. So they're not quite that 4% range yet, but they have extended their downside. So we shall see if perhaps we can move this needle here a little bit more for our premium friends out there. Bianca saying, dude, it's only 2%. There's a lot of time between now and tomorrow. I feel you. I think someone maybe is portraying his position in his tweets. He doth protest too much. He's like, dude, it's only 2%. It can move another 2% in the after hours, dude. All right, I'm with you, Bianca. Don't worry. It could move. I'm with you. I'm on your side. I want you guys to make money. We're just pointing out the facts here, sir. Or lady. Don't get mad. All right. Alberto, who wants to know, how does this earnings straddle thing work again? And what does that tell me? Well, it's very simple math. Stay with me. Mr. Alberto, I shall walk you through it piece by piece. You pick your name you like. Let's say XYZ name is trading, has earnings coming up, and they're trading for the mythical, magical $100 that everyone likes to trade. And you're looking at it, you say, I wonder what the market thinks this thing is going to do. And you look at the nearest term options. Usually it's the weeklies these days. If you can't get weeklies in your name, it's probably going to be in the front month option. You want to get closest to right around the number as you can. Obviously, they can't expire before the earnings because then you don't get the number. So you want something that includes the earnings but expires right after, if preferable. Weeklies are a great way to do it because you don't have a bunch of other crap built into it. If you go farther out than that, you got a lot of other noise baked into that option you don't want. You just want the earnings juice. So let's say in our proverbial example, there's a weekly popping off next week in XYZ that has the earnings within it. The earnings are coming out 2 days from now, let's say. And the call, at the money call is $1, at the money put is $1. Guess what you do? You add those together. It's so hard. Now you got $2. So you got 2%. That's exactly what the market is pricing in. Now you notice I did not say a direction there because the market is agnostic. It doesn't care where it goes. It's just going to tell you it's pricing in a range. You have to decide what you want to do, what that information tells you. If you think, you know what, like our friend Bianca clearly thinks there's more downside to come in a certain name, or perhaps some other way you think it's going to rally ho, or you think that's overdone. That's up to you to do that homework. But that's exactly what the straddle tells you. It's a very useful tool. It's a very simple tool. We hear all this noise, whisper numbers, analysts this, downgrade this, upgrade that. It's all nonsense. The real money is in pricing in what the market is saying right around earnings. And that's a great barometer to see what real money is telling you without the other nonsense, without the other noise. Real dollars at work in the marketplace, what they're telling you right now. How you use that, it's up to you, but it's a great tool. You should at the very least pay attention to it because it gives you a barometer for what's going on in the marketplace. If you want to trade something else, even if you don't use it, it's a great barometer. We used to always do straddle runs across a bunch of names. Could be in the indices, other places. Gives you a sense of what the market's pricing in at the money vol across a variety of names and months and strikes. That's a useful thing. So use that tool. All right, next up, Richard. He's an old school listener, writing back in again. I like this guy. Might have to find something for Mr. Richard from the stocks here, the storeroom, as a prize for long-term listeners. I like that. Maybe a nice fine, something nice and fine from our Options Insider exclusive gear shelf. So maybe Mr. Richard, when you hear this, write in with your with the same email, by the way. I don't want someone else writing in, pretend to be Richard. Write in with this and give us your shirt size and your address. Of course, we'll need that. Maybe we'll send you something fun. Maybe I can conspire with these other two to send you something cool too. He says, "Dear option luminaries." Well, I like that. He says, "It has been a while, years actually, since I have written in." He wrote, so it's the last time I wrote in, Alex was still one of the hosts, so it has been a while. The old Viceroy, how we do miss him. He goes on to write, "Are there any trades that, if you did not have to pay a brokerage fee, would be excellent types of trades? I recently have been given the opportunity to trade options and equities for a near zero trading cost for about a year." Not a bad deal. I had in the past found some multi-leg spreads or underlyings with really low prices unworkable because the trading costs made the potential gains or expected value too low. Thank you for your time and for the great shows you consistently point out. Oh, here's a little addendum for you, Uncle Mike. It says, "Uncle Mike, after that 12 Days of Christmas options parody from 2015, I think you should be given a license to inflict umbrage for at least a decade." Well, I don't know about that, sir. But wow, that's some love for you. Since he has invoked you, Uncle Mike, I shall let you have pride of place on this one. What do you think? You're not getting that license to get umbrage. I don't care what he says here, but what do you think about the rest of his question, sir?
Got it. Well, I'm just so taken aback by the license for umbrage. I mean, we should make a movie named that, Licensed to Umbrage. Wouldn't that be cool?
I would pay $6 to $8 to see that.
Of course, for sure. Most of the time, if there are ways with which that you don't have to pay anything for a trade, the first thought on that is that maybe you just want to scalp everything and try and get like a penny or two here and there. You could go that route. It's not a route that I really do, so I really don't know if I would necessarily be the one to comment on that. One thing that you may want to take advantage of, I know that I've mentioned our war on ticket charges many times on this show, but the one thing that sometimes brokerages have not really come down on a lot is stock trading costs. I mean, they have, but if you're going to trade rather frequently, and let's say that you wanted to maybe scalp and maybe add some deltas to a certain trade, and let's say you're a lower lot trader and you just need to add 13 shares of XYZ stock to make sure that your deltas are balanced the way with which you want to. That's the only way with which I could see in the option world that you may want to take advantage of that, because normally it would cost you, say, $6 for a trade, whereas if you just want to add your 13 shares to get your deltas the way you want them, then it would, if it's free, then I think that could be somewhat of a way to make it be something with which it could make a difference. But aside from that, the only other ways with which I could see it would be some type of day trading. And don't get me wrong, commission-free trading is the best kind of trading, in my opinion. But I don't know if you're going to have that much of an advantage over a lot of the lower costs that are out there right now, which, by the way, maybe take a look at RCM's rates if you're not Richard.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can give him something, too. I'm going to give him a shirt. We like to reward our old listeners, long-time listeners. I don't know if he's old or not. But you can't give him your free War on Ticket chart. How about a free copy of Go Along or something cool? How about that?
Tell you what, Richard, look me up. I'll be giving out my email at the end of the show tonight. Shoot me an email, and I'll make sure you can get a free Kindle edition of it.
There you go. See, the love keeps on coming for anyone who invokes the Viceroy. It's got to get something cool. But you're right. You know, this is an interesting question because you can go down some weird rabbit holes with this. You know, the obvious answer is, hey, you know, come out and you start slinging some of those things. Maybe you wouldn't because they're too cost prohibitive, like the crazy multi-legs. I was joking with Rock Lobster before. What about an iron condor ratio swap? You know, you couldn't really do that in most retail accounts because the cost would knock you out of the park. But that is open to you. You can do that. But the other side of that coin is also maybe you can get a little bit dangerous with that too. Like he mentions some cheapy names that weren't that attractive before. That means the premium probably wasn't there either. So you can maybe get a little bit ahead of yourself with this and start selling things maybe you shouldn't be just because the commission isn't good. Isn't costing anything doesn't mean the trade is good. So yeah, you can get into some weird roads. What do you say for this, Mr. Rock Lobster? The whole if commissions were no object, what would you do?
I don't think I do anything too much differently, although I'd be happier. But you know, we look at a lot of multi-leg trades, and the commission. One is the how you exit the trade. So, you know, anything where you can have the possibility, at least for half the legs drop off. If it gets too out of the money, would be great. So, I mean, you certainly think about it, but if the line between winning and losing is commission, then there's probably the trade isn't good enough in the first place. So, in that way, I would say, you know, hit the road. Even when, you know, Longo can remember, even being successful as a floor trader, you generated a lot of commission, and you know you made money. But like I said, if the commission slice is too close, where you don't think you would be making money on any particular position, it's probably time to go look for another trade.
All right, I'm giving him some exclusive insider gear. Uncle Mike's giving him a fun Kindle edition of his book. What do you got for him? You got a nice webinar he can get free or something? What do you got for him over there, Mr. Rock Lobster?
He sends me a note, Andrew at optionpit.com. We'll get him something. We'll get him something.
Just don't make him listen to Sebastian. That's all I ask you. Then he's good. Then it's a gift. Otherwise, it's just punishment.
Wants to listen to Sebastian. They can't help themselves.
Then it's just punishment. But you're right. You know, it is an interesting question. It's one of those things. A nice little thought experiment here for us here on the show. But yeah, I think, you know, at the end of the day, if you are doing something that you're right, and before, if the commissions were the problem, you know, maybe the trade wasn't ideal either. So that's something worthy of note. But yeah, if you were in the past, maybe also if you were maybe evaluating some multi-legs and sometimes they were a little bit prohibitive, maybe this might be a time you could experiment with those a little bit more. I like nice multi-legs usually because they're risk mitigated, so they're kind of nice. You're not going to be going crazy, blowing the doors off. If you're doing iron condors, things usually got those wings to protect you. So that's kind of nice. That's why I like those. I don't feel as bad recommending those as some of these other just blasting out cheapy puts because it's clearly a road to ruin. But interesting stuff. Good question. Love to have the long time listeners. We'll see if we can get the Viceroy back one of these days. He's running around doing a bunch of different things these days, wearing a lot of different hats. Unfortunately, not the Viceroy hat, so we'll see if we can bring it back for him. Lewis Winthrop III. I like that name. I got to pick that question. Just because of the name, I got to pick the question. Louis Winthrop III. He says, sounds like a very, very prestigious fellow. He says, what are the best options trades for the upcoming earnings release? I'm assuming that's what he means there. For Twitter next week. Twitter is an interesting one. We haven't talked about it on the show in a while. Closing today, $20 even out there on the name. This is the name doing of late 82,000 contracts a day. So lighten it up. Today, not so much. Only doing about 68,000. The OI is surprisingly on the call side, nearly 2-to-1 calls over puts. Which is interesting given the fact that this name has kind of been in the headlines of late for not a lot of good stuff, quite frankly. This thing has been on a decent rally, though, I guess. That probably explains some of that OI. It was trading back in April. It was trading about 14.5, shy of $15 and hitting 20 today. So I guess that could explain why that preponderance of call volume, all that was around earnings. I'm guessing their last number was pretty strong. I haven't had a chance to really pay much attention to Twitter. I have to be honest here. Looking at the names here, also really quick there, pricing in about 56% for the vol, and their 30-day HVOL, though, is about 30%. So it's not exactly hasn't been underperforming. I'm going to dig up some numbers here. Mr. Rock Lobster, we'll start with you while I'm looking here. Any year hardcores slinging some Twitter, and if so, what are they up to?
We did. Remember we just talked about the pre-earnings straddle? I did that in Twitter. I got out of it last week. It made like 12%, so I just closed it. In the August 04, about the 19.5 straddle. And I'm just like, okay, that's good enough for me. I just close it. I still think Twitter volatility is like the January vol is the cheapest option premium you can buy. Even looking at October, and I might buy more. I don't have much on in there anymore. I've been a lot more disciplined about it. So as soon as I make a little money on the move, I just close it and say thank you. It has been reliable as a low vol buy. I'm looking at October. I own some January strangles that I'm not ready to get rid of. I don't own almost anything in the short term. I got rid of 80% of that. So the rest is just house money. And I'm looking to actually acquire some October. So I think it's cheap, but full disclosure, I've owned it, I've sold it, I've owned it, I've sold it, and I'm looking to do it again, to be honest. So you did still have a little of it on.
You did they're coming off before the bell, I should say, on Thursday. So you did yours about a week ago, so a little later than you like to go like 3 weeks ahead usually.
I put it on the week before last, so it was I had it as it was almost a 4-week run to earnings, and I closed it last week because I think Twitter traded close to 21 last week, and the whole straddle blew up. So I just gave it back to them.
I'll say, because this thing is still pretty hefty. They're pricing in about 10% still. So they're pricing in some rocking and rolling, which indicates if you were selling that, you're not getting a lot of juice on that bad boy. And it sounds like it worked out for you. So there you go. And a good real life example. We're always talking about, your little 2.5 to 3 week dalliance with earnings vol. Now we have a good example. So
that was one. If you were in our room, you would have heard it and done it and been woohoo, woohoo, and then on to something else.
There you go. See, getting the love. Mr. Rock Lobster slinging himself a little Twitter. Who knew? Who knew he was doing more than Zynga out there these days? Uncle Mike, I'm going to assume you're not playing in the Twitters, right?
No tweets for me on this one.
You got to at least get the Twitter account going. Then we can fix that. Let's get Uncle Mike on Twitter first. Then we'll talk to him about Twitter trades. But I'm with that one. Sounds like you missed that one a little bit. But maybe a good cycle set up for next time. We talked about that trade before. It's a pretty decent trade if you can find a nice name that performs. And Twitter certainly performed this cycle. So good stuff there. Good questions, everybody. We got to keep rolling, though. We're coming up against it. Time for our final segment. It's time for Around the Block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, Around the Block. What's coming up this week? We kind of did some of this at the top of the show, but we can check back in with a lot of these names. Our friend Bianca may be getting a little bit happier, getting mad at me when I said it was only 2%. Now it's off almost 3.2%. So there you go. Creeping down inexorably towards that 4%. Hopefully it'll hit that for you, unless you're, of course, you're on the upside or you're short premium, in which case I hope it doesn't. So you can't win either way. Someone's going to get offended. We mentioned what's popping off later this week. We got the stealth Apple, formerly not too stealthy anymore, formerly now known as Chipotle. They are coming out tomorrow after the bell, pricing in a little over 6%, about 6.6%, about a $23 straddle out there. Facebook coming out later this week as well. They're coming out on Wednesday after the bell as well. They are pricing in about $7.50, so right around 4.5% for that name. And of course, the big Leviathan lurking in the dark, dark waters is Amazon. They closed today. They're pricing in about $45 for that straddle, so a little over 4, about 4.3% on this plus $1,000 name. Say that with a straight face. Crazy town. But a lot of things popping off. This is indeed one of the big weeks for the earnings cycle. We'll start with you, Uncle Mike. I just laid out a few. What are you watching this week, sir?
I'm watching just the earnings in general and seeing how it reacts to the market as a whole. Just with watching Alphabet after the market, the S&P futures, it appears, are down roughly 2 points from that announcement. So it definitely has some effect on the overall market. Just always watching to see where they go. Obviously, it's not going to have an effect on other sectors, such as like XLF, for example, is unchanged since the close of the market. Energy is not going to move much, and I'm not saying anything that no one doesn't already know, but wanting to see how the earnings affect the overall marketplace.
There you go. And Mr. Rock Lobster, we talked a little Twitter. We talked a bunch of names, SIRI, a bunch of others, Chipotle, Facebook. What are you watching the rest of this week, sir? Of course, the big A, which we'll have a chance to talk about live on Thursday's show.
Vol, watching that at Amazon pricing, because it knows no top. I remember when Henry Blodgett got himself famous for $400 in Amazon, and that was probably pre-spit. Looking at it, it's about $25 on the current price. So everybody's like, "Oh, it'll never be worth $5 billion." Well, it wasn't like a week. So, if anything, the case is for stronger now. At some point, I figure they have to be making money. Another thing is the continual and inexorable decline in volatility in the S&P 500. It is not going away. Don't know when it'll come back. It seems to be, besides whatever the president tweets about himself, there's not much else happening in the Washington, D.C. front, since Republicans can't seem to do anything, and nobody seems to be getting themselves into trouble lately. So that's a recipe for low vol, at least for another day.
All right, listeners. That music means we've come to the end of yet another joyous journey through the world of options. A lot of stuff popping off. We got Google. We got all the big names coming out. We got the crazy Tesla puts. Yeah, they keep on coming. If you're buying them, let us know why you're buying them. If you're selling them, let us know that as well. If you like sitting on that money for a nice year and a half or so. Either way, interesting stuff. Got a lot to watch this week. Of course, Facebook, Amazon, all that other fun stuff. Keep an eye on them. Let us know what you're trading. Maybe you got questions about some of the names you're talking about. Who knows? Maybe we got a stealth play like Twitter in our back pockets. You never know until you hit us up at Options. Good way to do it. Questions at the Options Insider also works as well as, of course, via the app and all the other social media outlets and everything else like that. If you hit the live chat, you can also ask us there live as well. And before we go, let me go around the horn one last time. Maybe you too, if you're a long-time listener, maybe you too can hit them up for some fabulous prices. Let's start with this. Mr. Uncle Mike, what are you cooking up in the land of RCM Wealth Advisors, sir?
Still doing the war on ticket charges, at least for another couple weeks anyway, and I'll be talking about other things in the coming weeks. But if you are sick of paying that pesky $6.95 ticket charge at your broker, in addition to a per-contract fee, give me a call. There's some things with which we can do to help you. If you wanted to trade through one of our brokers that's under the RCM umbrella, we might be able to work with you on that. Restrictions do apply, but please give me a call to find out what's going on and if you can this can work for you. My email is mtosaw@rcmfs.com, or give me a call at 312-212-3531, and I'd be happy to see if this is something with which we can help you with.
There you go. And if you're a long-term listener like our friend, I don't have, who was it here? Was it Richard? If you're like Richard, hit him up. Maybe you too can win fabulous prizes. Speaking of fabulous prizes, the Rock Lobster's always got something good in store for us, not just Twitter trades in his back pocket. Mr. Rock Lobster, what you got in store for us this week, sir?
Get your juice for free this Saturday. It'll cost you an 8th out of 10 lot, but you will learn actually how to structure option positions to get some contracts, and it ain't going to cost you very much money. Okie dokie.
There you go. He remembered it. Well done, sir. He didn't mute himself in the middle of it either. So it's a win all around. Check it out, optionpit.com, to learn more. And on behalf of the Rock Lobster, Uncle Mike, and Dee, myself, I want to thank all of you out there in the listening audience for downloading, streaming, subscribing, for hitting us up with all these great questions. Keep them coming. We love hearing from you guys, and we'll see you next time right here on The Option Block.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.